Welcome back to the Cheap Heat Productions podcast. Okay, welcome back to the show. And today I'm joined by a man that you will all know from the acting world, martial arts, voiceovers, a man of many talents, Master Daniel Pesina. How are you today, man?
Pretty good, mate. How's it going over there?
All good, man. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. We're gonna have a blast.
Yeah, we'll have a good time. Well, I'll try ask you questions that you've never answered before, and
Okay.
of course ones that you answer all the time and are sick of answering.
No, never get sick of it because it never gets old. When I get questions, sometimes the same questions. It's always different person, so they're looking for a different connection. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, cool stuff.
yeah.
Does not
Just a
suck.
little nice start. Just a little bit about yourself growing up, where you grew up and how you got into the martial arts at a young age. I believe it was through your family.
Yes, I am from Chicago, Illinois, USA, which is the Midwest. It's right in the middle of the country where I am right. Actually, I am literally a stone throw away from one of the Great Lakes, which was carved out by a glacier. But back in the day, way before my time, even though I'm pretty old, I'm not that old. But yeah, there was an old black and white TV show called Charlie Chan, the Detective. All the old people will probably it'll sound familiar. Younger people, not so much. But during one of the episodes, I saw a guy throw Charlie Chan, the main character, throw another guy with a judo throw, and I was like, "Holy cow!" I have two older brothers and one younger brother. The younger brother is Raiden, and the two older brothers are much older than me. So used to do the little brother thing, meaning I had to throw out the garbage. When it was time for them to throw out the garbage, they would make me throw out the garbage. They would make
Uh-huh.
me do the dishes. I had to do, and when they're sitting there, I had to change the channel because there was no remote controls back in those days yet. And so I got to do all the grunt work. So when I saw this throw, I was like, man, if I learned this, I could defend myself against my older brothers. And so that's how the journey basically, began, for me seeking revenge.
Yeah. So your brothers weren't into martial arts at all then, were they? Or was it just yourself?
Well, my two older brothers took it for like a month, but it didn't resonate with them.
Okay.
When you think when I bugged my dad long enough to take me for lessons, that he thought that he was like, he's going to be like his brothers. And, years later, one time he told me, he was just like, well, I thought you were going to just do it a month or two and just drop out. He goes, I never thought that it would be, at that time, it was shortly after we created Mortal Kombat. So he was just like, I didn't think that, over 20 years later, you'd still be doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so it was crazy.
And what was it about martial arts that took your heart and just took your passion?
Well, I started out with judo because at the time that I started martial arts in 1969, there were really no children's class.
Yeah.
My dad, when he took me to the judo and karate, jujitsu school, the guy looked at me. He was like, "We don't take them until they're 14." And my dad's like, "Oh, he's 14." But my dad looking around the office. Oh, you served in the military. I served in the military. So they both served in the army. Though one was my dad served during the Korean War, and this guy was clearly more like Vietnam War era. The guy was like, he looked at me and he's like, okay, let's say he's 14 and let's just see how he does. But I was only 10 years old.
Was that
Yeah.
Was that a matter of respect, do you think, between your father and the trainer?
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah,
a matter of like, oh, they both, being in the military, you know what your son is capable
yeah,
of, things like that. And I'm going to send that. So there was no kid classes, and I would train with the teenagers basically, So, and two, judo is an art. The way the guy did it, the judo was an art where you use your opponent's body weight and things like that. And so the train, you would do the throw over and you would do the movement before the throw so many times, and then you'd get to add the throw. So you're literally in one day, you're doing the movement like a throw 100 times without throwing, and then the last 10 times you get to throw. And you got to learn how to fall. And it was very much what attracted me was, even though you train with a bunch of people, it's really about you and only you. Having my older brothers, my older brother Tony is 6 years older than me, and my older brother Ruben's 8 years older than me. So a lot of times I would just play by myself. Sure, I had friends in the neighborhood, but it was back in those days. 6 o'clock, you come in. You can't go out after
yeah.
time. Because again, you're young, so they kept an eye on you a little bit differently.
Yeah. How long did it take you to start throwing your brothers around then?
I never got to throw my brothers around.
No, no.
No, because again, by the time I was pretty good, it was like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
So, and by that time they were, in high school and in college, and I did not get to throw them because they were cool.
yeah. You weren't the slave anymore.
Yeah, I wasn't the slave anymore. My brothers would my brother would buy me comic books and stuff like that. So, they were treating me like a little brother as
Yeah,
opposed to just like, the remote control on the TV.
yeah. When you fast forward a little bit, you go to 1991. From there, you're on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. How did that role come about for you?
It was, I was at a tournament here in the U.S. called Battle of Atlanta. It's one of the biggest tournaments in North America.
Yeah,
And they were looking, I was there with Ho Sung, the guy who plays Liu Kang, who also was Raphael in the Turtles, and
okay.
Rich Divizio, who's Kano. So we were hanging out competing at this tournament, and we were like, hey, if we get approached about this movie, because they're looking for people, we speak up for the other people and say, hey, have you taken a look at this guy? Hey, my friend, he's pretty good too.
Hmm.
So they approached Ho Sung, and Ho Sung was like, oh, you got to take a look at, Daniel. You got to really take a look at him. He's really, really good. So then they approached me, and then we went down to, they didn't tell us the movie until we went down. I went out to North Carolina, which is a ways away from Chicago, and did the audition there, the physical audition, because they're watching us compete at a tournament, but they have to see the more interaction, how you're going to stunt fight.
Yeah,
Because stunt fight is totally different than really fighting. You got to have some control. Nobody, you can't be hurting a person who
yeah,
needs to get replaced. Then you got to retrain somebody, and it's like complicated stuff.
yeah.
So, when I showed up there, then they told me it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze. And I had like some of the earlier Teenage Mutant Ninja comic books at home. So I was just like, oh my God. I was geeking out.
Yeah, you were a fan of the franchise before that, and even if you look back on it now, it still kind of stands the test of time, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah,
They just came out with, the Last Ronin.
yeah,
Yeah, cool stuff.
yeah. And when you look back on that experience in the Turtles, like, does it still resonate into your life every so often through fan conventions and things like that?
Yeah, I think even more than that, because those are, sometimes some of the guys call me up, like Hosung or or Rich, who I talk to like a lot, will
Yeah,
call me up and be like, "Hey, remember when Turtles, when we were doing this?" And I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, that was so crazy," because again, you're young, you're doing that, and one time I had the crazy idea to take my little Jeep on the beach and park it on
okay.
the beach because I thought it was cool and they would let you do that. But little did I think about, oh, the sand is going to get wet, and then your
Gonna
Jeep is
get
going to
caught.
sink into the
Yeah,
sand,
yeah,
and you're going to get stuck. And then you got to get all your friends to try to push you out. and how crazy. And my friends are Liu Kang and Kano trying to push my little Jeep out of the sand.
Did that happen? Yeah.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
happened, so, and I'm just like, man, I was just a knucklehead. We didn't think about that. He was like, no, we were just having fun on the beach because we can't do that. Like in the city that I'm in Chicago, we have a beach, but you can't drive on the beach,
Yeah.
and that you can, so those just little
Yeah.
crazy things like that come up
Yeah.
once in a while.
Did that movie open your eyes into the entertainment world? Because obviously you've done a lot since then, but was it something that you ever thought about getting into, or did you have any prior movie experience before that film?
No prior movie experience in that film except for when I was younger, a friend of mine wanted to do a project where he was going to direct a kung fu movie.
Okay.
And that friend was John Tobias, who is the creator of Mortal Kombat.
Right. So
Yeah,
that's all kind of came full
yeah,
circle.
yeah, yeah. Back when we were younger, he wanted to do that. I know the manager or the uh, the business end of the franchise is Ed Boon, who's in charge of it before, but he is not. He wasn't the guy who really created the idea or
Mhm.
that he's the boss. So
Yeah,
naturally, the boss gets credit for everything.
of course.
As he should. He's the boss.
Yeah,
He's the one who says yes or no, to money you're making or big decisions. So
yeah,
if he makes a wrong decision, he's going to get in trouble. So yeah.
yeah. And how did you become involved in the Mortal Kombat franchise then?
So then after that, when I was done with the Turtle movie, John Tobias called me up and he's like, "Hey, congratulations on Turtle." He goes, I just know you for a while, and when I watch it, I could see when you're in it. We're dressed in these suits, so that way I can take a hit here and then magically be over here when the camera turns, and I can take another hit because
Hmm.
though there's a lot of foot soldiers, there's only a limited amount of ones who take the action. You
Yeah,
know,
the
yeah.
stunt
So
actors.
yeah. So
Hmm.
that was my one of my primary jobs. I think I'm on almost every fight scene in the second movie. So anyway, John was like, just like, hey, remember when we did that movie the that movie for school? And I was like, yeah. And then he goes, I have that idea, and I work for a video game company, and I want to do a fighting game, but I want it to be real.
Hmm.
Like the guy that you're going to be, you couldn't help me do it. You're going to be like, providing the action. You could think of what moves, you can help me design this thing. And we're going to make it look like a kung fu movie. So it came out different than we originally thought, just because technology. We
Yeah.
thought we could do one thing, but then we couldn't do that, and we did another thing. And he's like, "Will you help me, you know, pitch the game to Midway?" And so I was
Hmm.
like, he was like, "I'll let you do whatever, put in whatever idea you want. You can help me create this game." And so I was like, "Ooh, this sounds really cool." It's a video game. I'm going to be in a video game.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
was just like, "Okay, we can do that." So we put together a package of fighting and forms, martial art kata, whatever your style, however they say that forms, and fighting, and we presented that package to Ed Boon and Midway. And originally they said no,
Hmm.
that they liked the idea of a fighting game, and they're going to pursue one with Jean-Claude Van Damme. So,
Right.
so that was, everybody thinks that Mortal Kombat is inspired by Jean-Claude Van Damme, but really that was, in my opinion, the first idea because, why would I need to create a fighting reel and kind of all this stuff of what a fighting game would look like if they already had an idea for a fighting game?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just so they said no to that, but then Van Damme said no to them, and then they came back to us and said, "We're going to let you do 200 arcade cabinets," and that's how
Okay.
it started.
Yeah. And what was the process like? Because did you work in a big team then, or was it just a couple of you guys at the time? And what kind of work did you have to do in terms of getting the voices down and getting the moves down? And did you coordinate a lot of the moves?
So uh, John was like, Tobias was like, "Hey, we have to create a pathway to the game. Every character is going to be a little bit different, but we have to make some general." Because it's a video game and there's going, everything is limited. So we're going to have to design that. So him and I were in a room for 8 hours a day for 5 or 6 days, just recording martial art moves. We set up John Tobias's dad's camera. That's the camera we use for Mortal Kombat 1, his dad's home camera. And what he was just, the first thing he said to me was like, do something cool. And so I just started doing martial art moves, and he was like, okay, high, medium, low. Let's get organized and do high, medium, low. And we just worked on it. That stuff. When we were done creating that thing, we erased those tapes to make room to tape over them to save money for the next thing. So it's craziness. So really, I got to design though. So John was like, I like that move. I kind of steered him. He was like, in the end, after about 3 days, like 3 days of filming, so that, that is close to 24 hours of filming. He was like, you know what? Literally at the beginning, I don't know if we're going to be visual, but we'd have a punch like this, and then I tilt it a little bit and punch like this, and then I'd punch like this, and then I'd over punch like that, just to see what it would look like on camera, and if we can use that thing. And we did that for all these different hand positionings, kung fu, so we were doing like kicking and punching and trying to throw and trying to do falling different ways. I had in my head where each movement, you would have a different fall. So it was going to be really, really complicated game that looked like a film.
Yeah.
So it was like, and two, when we're doing it on concrete, I'm doing flips and falls, landing on my back on concrete.
Wow.
Just to do that. And, eventually I was like, John, I don't think the rest of the guys that, because he was like, who else can we get for this game? Who else would work for free or cheap? And I was like, my friends will do it. So I was like, you know what? You're not paying these guys that much. They're not going to be wanting to flip on the concrete like I'm doing, man. This is like hard work. You're going to have to get some mats, crash mats, because this is like, I'm waking up sore, but it's cool because you're designing you're in this atmosphere where you're really, it's just John and I.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get enough ideas together to approach a programmer to see if we can program this.
Yeah. Did you ever think, looking back on it now, that it would be so huge? Like it's one of the most iconic games like of all time.
Actually, no, because in the end, when they said that, they told me we're going to do two, because Van Damme, we're not Van Damme, so they're not going to let us make as many games as we want. They said, you're going to do 200 games. And I was like, if you do 201 game and give me a game, I will let you make as many games as you want. And Ed was like, no, because we're only making 200 games and that's it. This project is small and that's just the way it's going to be. And he's the boss. So I was like, but when we were done, they pre-sold 10,000 games. So, but I always thought, because, when we were pitching the game to Ed, I was like, to make this game really unique, we have to change the Japanese ninjas into the Lin Kuei. And then John was like, what's that? And so I told him all about the folklore of the Lin Kuei and how nobody has really done it in mainstream. Nobody heard of the Lin Kuei up to them. So I was like, oh, it's a whole mythology. They're Chinese ninjas, and, it's mysticism and alchemy with martial arts. So, when we're throwing fireballs and things like that, we have a base for it. So there would actually be a folklore about it. It wasn't just like, oh, you're going to throw a fireball. No, we're embracing the Chinese mythology to be in this game. So, I changed the way they look into basically what the Scorpion and Sub-Zero look like in the game and today. So, I got to throw, all these little things in there, all these, hey, contribute to everything.
Is it something that you definitely look back on with pride, considering how kind of revolutionary it was at the time because of technology? Like it was nowhere near as advanced as what you can do now.
Yeah, I really was, because again, we wanted to look more like a movie too. There was a problem, we had to solve it right there and then.
Yeah.
We had a example is, when I was jumping, somebody's going to do a sweep kick and you're going to jump over the kick. Okay. I jump. Oh, guess what? We don't have lighting, professional lighting. So when I jump, the top of my head gets darker. Don't jump so high. Don't jump so high. So I jump lower. He goes, but when the foot comes through, it's going to pass through your foot like a ghost because you got to tuck your foot. And so I was like, John, you want me to float because I got to jump low, not too high, and then I got to tuck my legs. And then I got to land in the fighting position. And then he starts laughing, and I'm like, man, how are we going to do this? And so I looked around, and I was like, I saw a staircase they were using for a different game. I think it was one, they were using it for a different game. I was like, can we use that? And John is like, hey, we can use a chair. And I was like, yeah, but a chair is going to look like you're sitting in a chair. Where, see the way the staircase is shaped, we can use the corner of it, and it will look like you're actually jumping and doing the kick and different movements. So that way it doesn't look like we're using a chair. Once you cut out that staircase, it will look like the actual jump. Because when you're holding balance, your body kind of tightens in a certain way, as opposed to when you're sitting in your chair, you lower your back and your part of your butt is relaxed because you're sitting in a chair, even if you pick your legs up. So I was like, this will make it look more real and more action. So even that idea they still use in the games today. So
so like you had to use a lot of like improvisation, and you just use what resources you had back then to do it.
Yeah. We didn't have a budget. The costume came from my wardrobe, my own wardrobe. The lighting that we used ceiling lights, and John and I went around and took desk lights from desks to try to get some lighting in there. And then after we were done, we'd try to put them back to the so everybody so the people would come in and have their desk
lights.
Because we would try to shoot later on in the afternoon when nobody was around, because he didn't really, he wanted to keep everything a little bit more private, so he could keep control of the game, because it was his vision.
So you dabbled into like a lot of acting roles then after that game and things like that. But what do you do now in your daily life?
Martial arts, a lot of martial arts.
You've got your own place now, haven't you?
I teach. I spend my free time either watching horror movies or researching martial arts stuff, just looking at things or practicing myself. I don't really play any other sports, even though I enjoy, watching wrestling or MMA. I enjoy watching that, or even a little bit of the Olympics. But I really, try to get my free time either relaxing really or doing martial arts. So I'm a geek. I'm a martial art geek.
And how many classes would you do a week in Chicago?
Man, the classes maybe 20 a week. But too, I'm kind of old school where I work out with my students. No, I don't say, okay, do this. If they're going to do 100, I'm going to do 100. If they're going to do that, I'm going to do that. You know what I mean? Heck, I'm going to do more because because my ego, I want to be better than anybody. So we'll practice more than them. You know what I mean? And it's tough.
There's no one going to come to your school and show you up then.
Yeah. They might be able to do better flips than I am because I'm older now, but fortunately I have, footage of me doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So I could be like, yeah, I used to do that, but look at me now, and let's see if you can do the same thing in 30, 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. Would a lot of your students that would come in, would they have known you previously from things you've done? Or would they have known who you are, or would they just come in and then after a while they realize who you are maybe?
A few. I still have a lot of students who've been with me like a long time, who have been many years exploring, because again, I studied a lot. So, the depth of training increases because, of me practicing every day. So I understand the technique. I elevate the understanding of the technique, and I elevate the way, if the guy's going to punch like this, you're going to do this. But if the punch turns even a fraction of an inch, now you're going to do something almost completely different.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden they're exploring all this stuff. Like a lot of my students have, black belts in different martial arts. So they too, because all the martial arts for me are the same. You can only hold a fist correctly in all styles, otherwise you'll break your hand. Same thing with a kick. There's only certain ways to do stuff. Otherwise, it's really all the same.
Yeah. Did the pandemic when it was going on have much of an effect on your business then, or did you have to close for a while or anything over there?
Yeah, yeah, just suffering just like anybody else. For the major part, the classes were less. Some of the privates because they were one-on-one
Yeah.
continued, so that would continue too. A lot of weapons. I would, during the pandemic, I started teaching more and more weapons because when you're swinging around a sword or a staff, you got a good social distancing going.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah, and a couple of the guys like have, I'm a big fan of using live swords. So when we're using live swords, you got to keep your distance or slow down. It's intense. It could be
Yeah,
intense, you know.
yeah. Did
Yeah.
any did you ever see anyone hurting themselves? Not in your gym, we'll say, but anywhere else using swords or anything like that?
You always get hurt, but luckily, on like if I'm there on my watch, no, everybody makes sure that they're, kind of. I keep reminding me, hey, it's like you got to respect the weapon and respect yourself, and
Hmm.
go slow because if you hurt somebody, then nobody's going to want to train with you, and then when you want to train with somebody, no, you're not going to be able to because nobody wants to train with a jerk.
I just want to talk to you. I always talk to guests at entertainment about the convention world, and is it something that you enjoy doing? Do you get to do many of them and meet the fans from, I suppose, the Turtles franchise and Mortal Kombat as well?
Yeah, actually, I enjoy really going to events. Not only the traveling because I've been to Europe, South America a lot.
Yeah,
So I've seen places that I never thought I would see. And it's fortunate because it's on somebody else's. Somebody else is paying for the trip.
yeah.
I went to see Machu Picchu like 2 years ago, and it's a dream of mine to go there to see that. But I thought I would never go because I'm not going to spend that type of money to go just to go to Machu
Hmm.
Picchu. I'm not a rich guy or anything like that by all means. But yeah, I really like traveling and I am a geek. So I used to collect comic books. I like horror movies. I like anime. I enjoy all that. So when I go to an event, it's like hanging out with my people.
Yeah, you get
Yeah,
paid to hang out.
yeah. They get surprised when they start mentioning something, and I'm like, oh, and then I mention something back, and they're like, you know about that? And I'm like, yeah, oh, I have this or that, or even collecting stuff. Like I have like recently, uh, I I found like old toys that I had that I collected. So
Yeah,
I have like original Jurassic Park or original like Batman figures, GI Joe figures that are all still in the box, never opened, kind of boxes and boxes of them. So
we could see you. We could see you on Pawn Stars, maybe trying to
right,
sell them.
yeah, right, yeah.
In terms of then looking forward to the future, and are you planning on getting back into the acting world, or do you have any projects that are coming up that you can tell us about, or is there some secret projects going down?
Well, at the beginning of last year, uh, I got to go to actually this year. This
Yeah,
year I was in England filming Legends Never Die. Uh, Johnny Cage 30 years after, how he was because he's being pursued uh, by the Black Dragon. So that film it's being edited. It's a little slower just because of pandemic and stuff like that. But
yeah,
we're looking for that to come out probably mid-year. So and that will be free on YouTube too. We're gonna because it is a fan film. You can't
okay,
really make money on it, even though they spent quite a bit producing it. It's more like a bunch of geeks. We all geeked out and made this movie. So we're gonna have that coming out this
yeah,
year. And there's a couple other projects that if people follow me on social media, I can, when it's time, I can say that. But I don't really pursue like acting stuff, because I really enjoy
mhm,
martial arts. Though if somebody came to me with a proper script or things like that, I might be interested in that. Just because too, like being a martial artist, like and being older, I would rather if there's going to be an action movie, just an action movie, get somebody young to do it. Sure, if you need choreography in a specific sense, like you want a geeky guy who knows like so much about martial arts that it's overwhelming, then you could hire me. But if you just want to make a brawling thing, hire somebody else and give them a break. You know?
yeah. Listen, man, it was an absolute pleasure to catch up with you today. I really enjoyed that chat. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
You have a great day.
You too. Get some rest.
Oh, I will. It's late.
Yeah.